Hey everyone, I'm Danny and welcome to Wizardry Workshop. Today's video is another collaboration with the very talented Darkest Ravens Minis on YouTube. So she does a whole bunch of really cool imaginative projects, a lot of DIYs and miniatures and stuff. So if you haven't checked her out, and if you're not subscribed, go over there, check her out, subscribe if you like the content. What we've been doing is coming up with something to make, and then we each individually make our own. And so neither one of us have seen what the other one has done, which is really cool to see what one artist will do just out of their creative mind, as opposed to what another artist might do out of their creative mind, given the same subject. So this one is a potions DIY. We have the Siren's song and mermaid scales. The reason we're doing mermaid themed potions is because it's May, and apparently this is MERMAY. So these are MERMAY potions because it's May. I'd never heard of it. It's kind of like May the 4th be with you for Star Wars, only it's for mermaids and it's the whole month. So this is Mermaid Month. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the DIY, and then afterwards I'm heading over to Chantal's channel to check out what she made because I'm really curious about it. Anyways, check out the description box below for all the supplies you're gonna need to make this DIY, as well as the free downloadable templates, and let's get started. When making any potion, of course, the first thing that you want to do is pick a bottle. I have a small collection of bottles, so I already had this one, and I thought it would be a good one for this project. The next thing is to measure how big the label should be on this bottle. So for mine, it's going to be about 2 3/4 inch by 2 3/4 inch, almost. Like, it's going to be about a square 2 3/4 inch label. Next, you'll want to print out the templates. So these are sized to go on my bottle. So that size that I gave you, that is what you'll want. You'll want a bottle that these can fit on at that size. There are a couple ways to do this. I printed this on sticker paper, so it's going to be easy to peel them off. And I'm going to run this through my Cricut to cut these out. I also have a version that does not have all this extra printing around, and you can actually just cut around the print shape. And then I also have a version that only has one if you don't want to print a bunch. But I thought it would be cool and less wasteful to just go ahead and make 6 of them and maybe give a few away. So now I need to run this through my Cricut die cutting machine. And with those cut out, we can take this off of the sticky mat, and you should be able to see that there are like cut marks around here. I'm just going to trim them each out by just cutting the white space off. You can see the cut lines around there where it has started to cut in, but it should have only gone through the top layer and not through the bottom layer. That means we should be able to just peel it away just like that when we're ready to use it and stick it on our bottle. You could print this label out first and take it with you wherever you go to find your bottle and just kind of line it up and see if it fits. Next, we decide what's going in our potion. So I've got this box of just like all my potion supplies. I do need to find a cork that will fit. And there we go, that fits perfectly. I also did find a couple of things specifically for this, including these little seahorse charms. So I'm going to use one of these seahorse charms. And then I've also got a bag of little seashells. If I lived anywhere near a beach, I'd probably just go grab some of these from the wild, but I don't. Now I just need to pick out a bunch of shells that will fit through the top of my bottle here. As for what else goes inside this bottle, I have just a little bit less than a cup of water here. I also have some blue metallic paint. Do this outside of your bottle first, because if you put too much in, you might not like the way it looks. So I'm just gonna do a tiny bit at a time, like one little drip. You can use anything to stir this. This actually came in one of the Wizarding Trunk boxes with a DIY potion, which is really cool. So I'm gonna stir it up with this. So now, as you can see, we're getting some really cool swirlies in this water from that metallic paint. It's a little murky. I may have put a little too much in here, so that's okay. If it looks too murky, and you don't think you're going to be able to see the other things in there, you can pour a little bit of this out and add a little bit more water and stir it up some more and get it to the place that you like it. So now we've got our blue. I also have this purple color shift paint. We're going to use this later as well. It's a really cool effect. It kind of goes between purple and blue and all that. So I'm going to just put the smallest amount of this into the water. I literally am just going to take like the tiniest bit on the end of a pencil. You could use a toothpick and just put it in the water. So I don't want to mess with this too much. I don't want to make it too murky because I do want to be able to see the shells and stuff inside there. And I think this is a good amount of luster. Now it's just a matter of putting all this stuff together. So I'm going to take all the shells that I picked out. I'm going to toss them in first. With the shells in, we're going to go ahead and put the water in next. To do this, the easiest way, of course, without making a mess, is just using a funnel. So I'm going to pour this in until the bottle is as full as I want it to be. If it didn't fill up quite as much as you want, don't worry, you can add a tiny bit more water. It's barely going to have any effect on the actual liquid and luster on the inside. That's already looking pretty cool, just as it is with just, whoops, there's water coming out the top because I haven't sealed this yet. But yeah, look at that. With just the shells and the luster, the blue liquid, it already looks pretty cool. Now, as you can see, I've got heat gun, I've got my Bondic over here. This is optional, but recommended. And I've got my cork in my bottle. So I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue around the top of the cork about where it starts touching the rim of the bottle. So you just got to kind of figure out where that is. You can make a little mark if you want to. Just a line of hot glue around that. And then we're going to put it right in the bottle, right there, so that the hot glue kind of seals it up. You can scrape off the excess if you don't want it there. I'm going to do that. The hot glue, it'll work. You know, it's probably not going to let too much water out, but Bondic is going to completely seal it. It's basically resin, liquid resin, and then you cure it with this UV light on this side. So yeah, if you are interested in Bondic, it's highly recommended. I'm just going to put a little bit of Bondic all the way around the rim, just like we did with the hot glue. Now that Bondic is going to stay liquid until you hit it with the UV light. Just make sure it touches the cork and the bottle all the way around. I basically covered the hot glue with the Bondic. We'll turn on the UV light and then just cure the Bondic with the UV light. It usually only takes about like 5 to 10 seconds or so to cure this. It's pretty quick. So just go ahead and do this all the way around the rim wherever you put the Bondic. And you can test it with anything like a pencil or something. Just tap it with a pencil, touch it with a pencil, make sure that it is hard. So I'm just going to use this right here. You can hear it. It has hardened. And in the end, if you're not quite sure, you can touch it with your finger just to make sure. Now we're going to wrap the rim of the bottle with twine or jute cord. Before we start using our jute cord to wrap around here, make sure that you have whatever charm you're going to use. Mine is a little seahorse. Set aside because we're going to need that. We're going to take this cord and we're going to start with one end and make a little kind of like U in it like this, just like that, with this end facing down. And then we're going to hold that right here up against the neck of our bottle. And with this against the neck of our bottle, take the other end, the long end of your cord, and wrap it around, and then just keep going around while maintaining that little like U loop at the top. So we're just going to keep going up the neck of the bottle. Oh, I should mention that wherever this little loop, this little U is, that should be the back of your bottle here. And just keep going up. And once you reach the top, you can go down as well. And about wherever you want that charm to be. So I'm going to say right here, because this is going to be the front of my bottle. So take your charm and string it through like this, Hold it where you might want it. Let's see. Right there looks good to me. And then we'll keep going up the neck of the bottle until we get to the top again. We're going to take this end of the cord and we're going to put it through that loop. And it's just going to go straight through that loop, just like that. And then if we pull on this string right here, it's going to make that loop tighten around this side of the cord. So we'll just tighten that down and we can pull on both sides like this to tighten the whole thing up. Now we can trim the bottom cord down and we can trim the top cord. And then you can use something like tweezers or really anything that can get the job done to sort of tuck those ends in underneath the rest of the cord. So now at this point, this is where I am with my potion. So here I was getting ready to do my wax seal, and I wanted purple wax, and I realized I don't have purple wax. And then I remembered I got something in the wizarding trunk not too long ago, and it has purple wax included. Now before we do the wax seal, one thing you can do, because you can see all the little like stringies and things that are coming off of the jute cord, if you just take a little fire to that, you can burn all those away. And it also makes the jute cord look a little aged. I think this is going to look pretty cool. I like the color combination here. So you just obviously would need to start melting your wax. So go ahead and light it just like you would light a candle. We will wait for it to start dripping, and then we'll start dripping it on top of our cork here. And it is dripping, so I'm going to move it up here, let it drip. You can even speed it along if you have a long reach lighter like I do, and just get it to start dripping a little faster. And I'm just going to keep going until the entire top is covered in wax. And then make sure that your wax seal is right side up. And then press it down. Wait a couple of minutes and remove it. I didn't mean to get so drippy with this, but it just kind of happened. So, you know, I had to go with it. And the last thing we're going to do is put the label on here. The label should just lift right away from the sticker paper. I just started on both sides. It's having a little bit of trouble. There we go. We just place it in the center. And that is the Siren's Song potion. Now we're going to make some mermaid scales. And I've gone over this in my head a lot, trying to figure out like what's the easiest way to do this at home without needing like a whole bunch of supplies and stuff. I'm trying to make this easy enough that most people can just do it at home and don't have to go out and buy a bunch of stuff. So I'm using thick cardstock, which I am going to paint with my Color Shift paints. So this is the Color Shift purple paint, and it kind of shifts from purple to blue and stuff. You can see on the lid, that's what it's supposed to look like when it's done. So this is going to actually look really cool, and it's going to be easy to make. So I'm going to paint the paper until the whole page is covered. Let it dry, flip it over, and paint the other side. Now I'm going to take that same metallic blue paint that I used in the potion, and I'm just going to give this a little texture using a sponge. And I don't need too much paint on there, just a little bit, just enough to kind of blot around on top of that purple Color Shift paint. And it's just giving it a little bit more color, a little bit more texture. It's getting late, so this is going to dry overnight, and I'm going to come back to it tomorrow morning. Morning has come, and this is completely dry on both sides. The next thing is to cut the shape of the scales out of this. So we're going to cut them out. You can either do this with scissors, by hand if you want to. I have another Cricut template that I'm going to use that's just going to cut a whole bunch of scales out of this sheet of paper. So just like before, we will feed this into the Cricut, load in the shape, and cut it. All right, so this has gone through the Cricut and I've cut out the shapes of the scales here. I did have to use a little bit of masking tape to hold it down because this kept kind of slipping around. I think my sticky mat is a little bit old. But yeah, let's take this off and see how it turned out. They should, most of them, hopefully just pop right out of the paper. There are only a couple that have a little bit of extra kind of like paper on the outside where it didn't quite cut through, so that's going to be easy enough to fix those with some scissors. So I think the color of these look good. The only thing is they're totally flat, and we need those to look a little more like sort of curved. You could even just take a Sharpie to make it easier. Sort of just bend it like that, and you're good. So let's do that with all of these scales. Now we have all of our mermaid scales done. And you know what? I'm pretty happy with these. I think this is probably what a mermaid scale would likely look like. Maybe not so thin, but you know, it looks pretty good. I also got this. This is like, I'm pretty sure like a candy dish. That's what I'm gonna call it. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. I'm gonna use this. I got this for like $2 at a hand-me-down store. I'm gonna make a little display where people can buy mermaid scales in bulk. I've got some sand, so I will just pour in some of this sand. I also thought it would be cool to mix in some of this white glitter. It's like this white, it's got a little blue and pink in there. Pretty cool looking. Reminds me of something mermaid related, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of that in there too to make the sand look a little bit more, I guess, magical. Mix it in with the actual sand so we've got a little bit of a glitter to the sand. I don't know if you can see that, but I can. Now we're gonna go back to our shells. I'm gonna go for some bigger ones that wouldn't fit in the bottle. Put them around in here. The shells can kind of be around the rim because in the middle we're going to put our mermaid scales. And I'd like to kind of make it look like, you know, a nice intentional display of mermaid scales. And I think that looks really cool. And the last thing we have to do is the display for the mermaid scales. I printed this on cardstock paper, and I printed the one with bleed. There's also a file that is no bleed. In that case, you'd be using scissors to cut them out. But again, I'm just gonna load this onto my Cricut and use the template to cut this out. So here it is once the Cricut has cut everything. So all we have to do is lift up off of here, pop out the pieces. And what we want to do is fold right here. You can see where the design stops, where the scales and stuff stops. That's where we fold. And yes, I am going to score it. It might not be 100% necessary, but you always get a better fold when you score. So that's why I'm doing this. And we fold there, just like that. So now we have this mermaid tail, and it kind of has like a little back flap right there that it can sit down on the table. And that's where this comes in. This piece is going to help it stand up properly. So all we're going to do is take this piece and make a fold right here, a little less than an inch, and then do the same thing on this side, only the other direction. So we're kind of making like a zigzag or a Z shape like this. See what I mean? I'm just going to use some double-sided tape for this. So we'll get one piece of tape and we're going to put it on one side of this little zigzag piece. And that gets glued down here. I'm gonna do it just slightly over to this side though for balance, I guess. So it gets glued down here slightly to the left, just like this. And then the tail goes up and the other side, as you can see, gets taped down right there. So we'll grab another piece of tape. This time we'll put it right there. I don't want it to be straight up, just a little bit this way, just a little resting on that this little stand here. So this is what we want. And when I set it down on the table, it just sits up like that. I know this isn't very fitting for mermaid themed things, but if we take the little mermaid scales that we made right here in this, and then we take the mermaid tail stand up, we can put it right there with it, and we have mermaid scales as you might see them in a magical shop with the display. And there you go, you've got your mermaid scales right there. This looks pretty cool, you know, for that just being like painted cardstock paper. I think that looks really cool. You guys can meet me over on Chantal's video in the comments. I am definitely checking that out as soon as this posts. If you made it all the way to the end of the video with me, you're a Wizard Harry. Give it a thumbs up down below if you did enjoy it. And while you're down there, if you're not subscribed, subscribe for more Harry Potter DIYs and unboxings and magical content. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.